I want to welcome everyone to the Chatman's Bow. Before I start this series on the Chatman's Blueprint of Wealth, I wanted to give a few thoughts. I have always viewed wealth as a three-part process. Even though this series is over financial freedom, you must consider your health and your spiritual well-being when creating wealth. The Chatman's Bow is not just about creating wealth in a lifetime. It is about generational wealth. Time is the only factor that limits my wealth building, but through my offspring, the Chatman's name will have centuries to build wealth. All the accounts in the Chatman's Bow can be passed down from generation to generation. The things I've learned, I will pass down to my kids and family, so that they may pass it down to all of our future generations. One other thing I wanted to briefly mention before I start this series is mindset. I had to mentally prepare for creating wealth. I had to understand that the way I thought about money must change. We have so many things to face in a lifetime. Being physically and mentally ready for this journey is a must. I hope you enjoy and find value in this series. Welcome to the Chatman's Bow. The Chatman's Blueprint of Wealth is a series of accounts, mostly tax-free accounts, that I have structured in a way to mimic a business-type structure. It is my account of all the things I have learned on building wealth. One thing I know for sure is that if I have not read certain books, I would not have the mental capability of being able to push through a lot of the things I have learned. The Chatman's Bow will follow my thought process, and I will be sharing most of these books as I go throughout this series. So let's start the Chatman's Blueprint of Wealth. The first book I read when starting my wealth building journey is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. There was something always inside of me that knew there had to be a better way of creating wealth than working two jobs. This book resonated with me so much. It helped me to understand why I was feeling a certain way and the fact that the rich don't work for money. It was just awesome to know that there were people who felt or thought the same way I did. Once I started to learn about money and finance, I could not stop learning. The Chatman's Blueprint of Wealth will be from my point of view from the beginning of this journey, but will include some knowledge I didn't have when I started. The beginning of this journey and the knowledge gained along the way combined, I think, will be an asset to anyone who listens. I came from a very poor background. This early life instilled in me to save money. Saving money did not build wealth. It hindered my wealth building, even though at the time I did not know it. I worked hard, had an excellent work ethic, but could never seem to get ahead. This was partly due to a weak mindset when it came to money, and partly due to not understanding how to make money work for me. I thought I could just bulldoze my way to wealth. It was not working. It took a long time to build up a savings. As soon as it was built to the point where I felt comfortable, an emergency would come up and wipe it all out. I then would have to start over. This process repeated itself over and over. I had always been frugal with money. This part came easy to me. So when it came time to start building wealth, I already had a head start. I spent thousands of hours learning about money and finance. Through this process of learning, I came across a book called Think and Grow Rich. It was a tough read at first, but just like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it resonated with me. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years writing this book. I'm not going to get into the book. I'll let it do for you what it did for me. I will, however, play one of the passages from this book.
Before moving on, the editors would like to reinforce Hill's advice to follow his instructions to the letter. The editors know there is a tendency for the reader to assume that it is enough for them just to intellectually understand a concept. As you read Hill's 6 points, you probably found yourself thinking, sure, some people might need to write things down, but I'm not a kid, I get the idea. Or, okay, I understand that saying it out loud might help some less sophisticated people, but I already understand the point intellectually. If you feel that way, let us remind you that many of the most successful people whom you admire did not think they were too smart or too sophisticated to follow Hill's instructions. The editors would again point out that if Napoleon Hill believed the actual acts of writing and speaking your goals is important, and if psychologists and motivational experts agree, then you would be foolish not to follow this simple advice. Just do it.
I was one of those people that thought I did not need to write out my plan. It did not take long, with all the distractions life threw at me, to realize I too, just as all the wealthy people throughout time did, needed to write out my goals. When I was first starting out on my wealth building journey, I could not write out a plan as detailed as it is today. I had to start out with something simple, and it would evolve over time. The original plan was to live off dividends from the stocks I owned. It did not take very long to learn that it takes a ton of money to build a dividend portfolio. Throughout the years, I've also learned very quickly that taxes play a huge part in building wealth. It was going through these processes that led to my current blueprint of wealth. The Chatman's blueprint of wealth started out with my income. It would go into an individual broker account. This account is the business. In this account, I would write covered calls and sell cash covered puts. The money generated from this account would be split between different accounts, like my paycheck from work would be. When I thought about my check from work, the first thing that happened is the taxes would be taken out. To mimic this, I used my life insurance policy. The next thing that came out was my retirement money. For this, I would use the Roth IRA. After taxes and retirement, my health insurance would be deducted from my check. I used an HSBA for this, or a health savings broker account. Finally, whatever was left, if any, would be my pay. For this, I used a second individual broker account, which was a dividend portfolio. My pay would be the amount of money this portfolio produced. This is the Chatman's blueprint of wealth. From this blueprint, I learned so much about business. I remember I used to complain at my place of business. I wondered why they did things a certain way. I just always assumed I could do it better. It was easy for me to sit on the sidelines and complain when I was unaware of the obstacles the business was facing. I learned about such things while living out my plan. I also learned, without even knowing it, why some businesses pay dividends and some do not. Now that I had the design of the business mapped out, I needed to address how this was all going to come together. How much money did I need to designate to each account? How often? Once all the money was allocated to these accounts, do I get the rest? Or do I keep growing the business? In the next video, I'll go through my thought process on these things.